Hi again. Today I'm working on blue glass and wire candle holder. And of course, this is also stained glass style, so it's done with solder and wire. Now I'm starting off with a plastic top from a nuts jar, I think it was. And I just wanted something the right diameter because I bought these 4.5 inch diameter macrame wire hoops that I'm using for this. And so I needed a bottom to my candle holder. Now I'm covering the plastic with copper foil. I bought wide copper foil, and I'm wrapping the bottom of the candle holder and a hoop of wire, and just kind of attaching the hoop of wire around the base so that I have a starting point for my project. The reason I'm wrapping this is to protect the plastic and making it so that I can solder to this base without, melting the plastic or not being able to solder. Because when you're dealing with like metal hoops that you buy, the solder generally will not solder to that type of metal. So generally, I will always cover any of my hoops or other metal objects that I get with foil. So this copper foil was 2 inches wide, and I cut it accordingly and then foiled it. For these small round flat glass blobs that I'm using, I'm using 1/4 of the width of your natural 7/32 inch black backed copper foil. So I cut those long strips of foil into 4 equal strips, and that's what I'm using for my small round circles for this project. I have 14 millimeter diameter, 10 millimeter diameter, and 8 millimeter diameter circles in this project. They're called glass. They're also called stone. So I'm not really sure what they're made of. I bought them at Temu and AliExpress. Basically, when you're dealing with specialized pieces of glass or stone, transparent stone for projects like this, you often have to source many different places to get what you want, because they come in and out of stock. So you just have to keep checking. So I did a whole bunch of those, and then I have other rectangular pieces of glass that came with 2 holes in them that I threaded on the top part of my candle holder. And I am now attaching different parts to the top of my candle holder. So I'm trying to make them equally spaced, and I'm just kind of tacking the top and bottom of the wires. I used 22 gauge wire that I bent using baling pliers to wrap. Some of my other videos will show exactly how I did that, but to make those circles that I will put 10 millimeter diameter glass into for the top of my project. And then the other loops that I am soldering on right now were what I used to attach those rectangular parts. Now I'm putting my 10 millimeter glass foiled round cabochons into the circles that I created and soldering them in place. Now that I am using silicone gloves to help prevent my fingers from burning, but I'm also using a scrap piece of thick silicone sheet between my fingers and my project at times, because the copper heats up really quickly. So you don't want to have your fingers burn while you're working on your project. Now, the reason why you want to tack this kind of stuff together, you don't want to solder the whole thing at once, is while you're soldering, you're heating up that copper really quickly, and it'll make the stickiness of the copper foil just kind of fall off, so that your round cabochon that you very carefully foiled just falls out of its foil. Now, when that happens, if I'm in this stage where I am starting my project, I will just kind of heat up the whole thing, get that cabochon out of the circle, the copper wire circle, and then I will just put a new one in. If it's later on, like I've already finished my project, I've patinaed it, I've, waxed it or oiled it, then I might resort to a different method like super glue or something else to hold it back in place. Or else you can start all over and clean the whole thing and then replace it. Right here, I have these mosaic squares that you can buy, and stuff that you can get on Amazon. I will list in the detail page where you can look at the materials. I am an associate, so I will get a little bit of rebate, money back, a couple cents if you happen to buy something on Amazon after you look at my suggestions, but they're basically there for you to just know what I use. So these are larger mosaic rectangles, squares. These are 1-inch squares, and they come in all different colors, and they come in triangles and diamonds and stuff like that, and I'm just using them for the base of this. Then I put flux around it, and I'm putting another macrame hoop on top of it. Now, this particular hoop, I did foil the whole hoop so that it will accept solder, and I am centering it the best I can, and then I'm just tacking it in place with solder to try to center it in place. And now I am just filling the gaps. Now, you don't have to tin all your copper as you go along. You can just wait till you're all done and then cover everything with solder. But the thing is that when you're making a project like this that's tall, even a few inches tall like this is, it's harder to get your hands in and really get in there to do the soldering. So it's just easier and more efficient to just solder as you go. You can also tin everything ahead of time before you attach everything together, and at times I will do that, but usually it's not needed. Usually you can just solder, put extra solder on top of all the foil after you're done attaching it to your project. So you saw that I added flux, and I'm going to be soldering on the inside and the outside of the project to hold it together. Right now I have a long string of those round circle loops that I made with 22 gauge bare copper wire, and I am soldering in some of the 14 millimeter in diameter blue and white glass or stone, but they're transparent. You don't want to use plastic, because plastic will have more of a tendency to melt. I don't know if you'd be able to, even if you put the foil on the edges, prevent them from melting if you use plastic circles. But you can give it a try if you want to. They're definitely less expensive if you buy acrylic. Well, I'm doing the sides of all of these. You'll notice that I'm skipping from one to the other. I'm not doing one all at once. That's because if you heat it up again too quickly, the whole circle, the foil will just fall right off. So I will go and do the sides of them, and then go back and do some more of the sides, and then turn it over and do the other side, and then turn it over so I can do the back and put some solder in the back. And you'll notice because I did these loops by hand, even with a baling tool, they aren't perfect. So yeah, you'll have little gaps at times, but this is not manufactured by a machine. This is a handmade project you're doing, so you're going to get some discrepancy between one area and another. This project also, like most of my three-dimensional projects, are not the solder is not really smooth like you get if you do a flat stained glass project. Now, when I foiled those squares at the bottom, I did use a full width of the 7/32 inch foil, so I didn't have to worry as much about the glass popping out as I heated it up, because the fact that the foil is wrapping around the glass helps hold the glass in place in the foil. But as you can see with these little circles, I'm basically just going right around the edge of them, and that is what is it's the sticky part is holding them together, and that's why you really don't want to use a lot of heat. Now, when I get toward the end of any of these projects like this, I always hope that I will be able to have them symmetrical. I won't have like half a circle left. So then I will cut it and then ease in the last few circles so that they fit. So I had a few extra. I just made a long piece of them and then, went around it. And then kind of evened them out. So when I'm doing something like that, I will not finish soldering, tacking down all the little circles. I'll get so I have about a quarter of the diameter not soldered down, and then just kind of ease in the last ones, whether I have to stretch them out a little bit or kind of crimp them to make them fit, because it's hard to tell if you're going to end up with the right number once you get all the way around. And because they're not symmetrical, the spaces in between them aren't identical, it's hard to judge perfectly what you're going to get until you're done. So I have at times had to cut the wires in between the circles and then just kind of solder them so that they're closer together toward the end. Now, right now I have a number of wires that I cut out of 16 gauge bare copper wire, and I'm soldering them on to the next level. And this is because I want to have like a gap between this part of the project and the next ring. So I'm adding some of these wires to this on edge, and I am not adding a perfect amount and putting them like every 45 degrees or something like that. I'm having it kind of irregular, so I don't have to. I'm not going to fall into the trap of not having them perfect. If you want to make a perfectly symmetrical project and making each ray of your circle identical, I mean, you can do that, but you're going to have to work a lot harder and do a lot more measuring to make sure that it all comes out perfect. So it's really up to you. So I'm going to end up having these wires soldered also. They're going to be completely covered in solder. Now, you don't have to do this. If you want to end up with a copper colored patina when you're done, so that the copper color of the wires and the foil is going to end up being the final color of your project, then you could avoid, covering everything with solder. Although the patina will not be identical to the copper wire and foil, it would be really close. So I'm going to use black patina on this project, so I want to cover everything with solder that I want to have black when I'm done. So I have these wires sticking up, and now I'm soldering the next section, that section that I showed you at the beginning that I did, to the top. it's kind of hard to make this perfectly round when you're done. And I didn't when I'm done, as you can see in the pictures, it's not perfectly round. It's a little bit wobbly, but it's close. So, you can try your best to make it stand up nice and straight. Now, I did make some smaller little coils with some 20 gauge and 22 gauge wire, but I ended up deciding that they just look too wimpy compared to the rest of this project, so I guess I'll have to use those for something else. So I made new coils, and these were out of 16 gauge, a little beefier. The wires are nice and beefy, and I think they go nicely with the rest of it. I'm covering all of the wire with solder, and I want the covering of the solder to be somewhat clumpy so that it goes with the rest of the solder. So you could use pre-tinned wire, copper wire in this project for an area like this, and that would mean that the wires would be nice and perfectly symmetrical and smooth, but I didn't really want that look for this. I wanted the irregularity that you get when you add solder to them. Now, in order to have the blues from the bottom of this project and the top to kind of blend in with each other, I used some of the same colored round blobs from the top, and I'm adding those as accents to this middle section. And then I'm also going to use some of the colors in the square, that color, the blue squares and the big round blue and white circles at the bottom. I'm using some of them in this middle section to help bring that color up. Because I figure, you're not going to have your candle lit all the time. And when the candle's not lit, you want the candle holder to look pretty. So here are my blue and white foiled circles that I made a whole bunch of, and I'm adding some of them also. Again, I'm just tacking them in place, and then I will come back and add more solder to every side, top and bottom, back, everything, so they stay in place. So I added the bigger ones to any space in between the coils that fit. And now I'm going alternately with a blue and a white one, finding space in between the coils that I will put the other colors. So I just kind of went all over it and added more circles wherever I could find space. And this kind of helped fill in so there's no large gaps between the wire coils. When you're soldering on something like this that's very small and delicate, if you put your solder iron on the wire first and then have the heat go toward the thinner glass that you're trying to attach, that will help make the solder not heat up your glass too much. So you just get used to where to put the heat first. So if you put it on something that's cooler and thicker first, and then have it kind of merge into the more delicate glass, you'll have better luck with it not making your glass fall out. So this is before it's been patinaed. It's all done, and I'm going to patina it. For these smaller projects, you could see I'm using the black Novacone. I put it in a plastic Ziploc bag, the patina. And it was really a cool way of doing it. For the larger projects, I often spray it on. But for the smaller ones, I'm putting them in a Ziploc and then just kind of rolling it around till it gets completely covered. If I need to, I'll use a an old toothbrush and just kind of scrub it in where needed. Now, I am adding silver highlights to the patina. And I'm doing this to give it some more interest for when it's not lit up and it's just sitting there on your bureau, and it just kind of adds kind of an antique-y look. For the one that I did before this that had green leaves, I used a copper paint on it. This one right here is actually this silver folk art metallic paint. It's just really inexpensive paint that I just kind of brushed over in places. After that dries, I'm using a linseed oil, which is a very fine oil, and I am kind of painting it on everything. And what that does is it kind of seals the patina and the wire, and it also adds a shine to it. And then after I'm done with all this, I will rub off the excess oil off of the glass. So the silver just gave it some highlights and interest, and the oil finished it off nicely. You can use wax, people do that too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye bye.